Wonderful morning. Good morning, everyone. Just quickly, we have, is Sol here from Argentina? Or is she still outside? There you are. So, all the way from Argentina with her friends. Anyone else come from outside of the US? Well, and Canada, like Northern America? UK? Okay. Who else? That Hawaii counts, yeah. No, so that's pretty cool that people hear about this and come from sometimes so far away to come and listen to this. I got scolded for not introducing myself at one of the other events, and so I'm Doug Reynolds, and Pam and I started LowCarbUSA, and one of the talks I did in West Palm Beach, I think last year, I gave my testimonial about why I got involved in this and what I'm doing. So if you want to listen to that, it's on YouTube. This year in West Palm Beach, I did a long talk about our whole effort to establish a standard of care, which is kind of our biggest program, I suppose you want to call it, right now. And I was going to kind of update you with that, and I'm going to spin through that because we went out to dinner last night, and I got into a conversation talking about my family and a personal situation for me that I feel like I want to share a little bit with you to give you another aspect of why we try to do this. So a lot of what I'm going to show you is on our website. All of it is on our website. You can go and peruse that at your leisure any time. I'll just give you a quick brief overview of what we're doing, and then towards the end, I'll talk about what happened in Australia. So first of all, we found that so many people want to do this, but they're unable to find a doctor that's not telling them that they're going to get high cholesterol and die of a heart attack, or many other reasons why they shouldn't be doing it. And so what we started to do is create this database of keto-friendly or low-carb-friendly doctors who are at least open to the conversation. And that list is growing as you go. You can put in a zip code and find people within. It actually expands out quite far if it can't find someone close. You may have to travel to the next state, but at least you can find somebody. If you really want to see a doctor that's open to the conversation, then that gives you the opportunity. So we're continuing to work on that, and I'll talk about that certified badge a bit later. We also, this is why you guys are here. It's all about the science, right, and why this is a valid option. So there's a really good database of technical papers and clinical trials, and some really good articles. There's another section with articles in it that are really helpful if you guys are looking for stuff to back up. If you're trying to have an argument with family or friends or doctors or whatever, there's a resource for you to go and find the information you want. Adele Height, and we'll keep talking about what she's doing. Her picture's there because she's a rock star, and she's been helping me to implement this effort to establish a standard of care for carbohydrate restriction. And what happened, you can't actually see that. Oh, you can. It's actually not too bad. So I invited her to come and speak and mediate a panel that we were planning to just get feedback from doctors that were trying to implement this in their practice. Gary Taubes' next book was involved in that, and he was involved in that whole thing. In fact, he suggested that I get hold of Adele. And when I contacted her to ask her if she would mediate this panel, she sent me back this huge document about all this stuff that she had in her head, and made me weak at the knees. But the more I read it, the more I started to realize that within our community, we had a lot of these pieces that she was talking about. And her big thing was, there is no standard of care for carbohydrate restriction. You'll hear Dr. Eric Westman later in the weekend. And his answer to most things when people ask him about it is that's for carb eaters. You know, and the current standard of care is for carb eaters. There isn't one for people who are restricting carbohydrates. And what was really important is that she was involved in a trial, a legal trial, and the judge had to tell the jury, explain to them what the standard of care is. And what's really interesting, if you read it, this is the legal definition. And if you read it, it's not about what they learned at college. It's not about some set of guidelines. It's not about anything that's written down. It's a consensus amongst doctors, physicians, medical practitioners in the same environment with similar training. What they agree is the right way to treat something in any particular situation, right? And but what popped out to me is, first thing was the community, and that was something that we're really strong on trying to develop. And the guidelines was also something that they didn't exist. So I started to work with her, and that's why I say she's a rock star. We put together a panel of, and I think I've got them here. So these people are all part of our panel for the clinical guidelines. Now, the clinical guidelines are guidelines. They are not the standard of care, but it's a start. So we've been working for a year and a half on this, and apart from these people who from all over the world, she's been talking to Dr. Sima Lotra, she's been talking to Karen Zinn, she's been talking to Sarah Hallberg, all sorts of other people that aren't even on this list to get their input and feedback on establishing this set of guidelines. And officially today, as of about half an hour ago, we published this on our site, the official non-draft version 1.0 of the guidelines. Okay? And that round of applause is for Adele, not for me, I promise you. She has been unbelievable in the amount of work that she's done on this, and it's an ongoing project. We're now working on addenda for condition-specific things. I think the first one is probably going to be, we're working with Sarah Hallberg to come up with something for diabetes. But for every different condition, and there's more and more conditions every day that I'm finding out about that restricting carbohydrates can have a profound effect on either improving the condition or even eliminating it completely. So diabetes will be first, but eventually we'll have addenda for every single condition, and the little nuances and tweaks and stuff like that may differ from the general one. So this one here is general, and then we're going to start working from next week already on these condition-specific addenda. So we're really, really proud of this. But as I said, this is not the standard of care. It's just it's a guidelines document that we put together, right? We got a lot of people from really incredibly intelligent people from all around the world contribute to this document, but it's still amongst our group, we wrote that document. So that is not a consensus in any way. So what we've also done is created a social platform within our website that anybody can join. And we're going to start kicking this off now, encouraging groups to, local city groups. Like we've got one in San Diego. Somebody's asking about Seattle. We're gonna get the group to meet at the back here sometime so that we can create one in Seattle. Start a group on here and start the conversations, because it's these conversations that will translate over. So those are the professional organizations that we've got. But one of the groups that we've got that is only open to the medical practitioners that are part of our professional community, which we've created. And it's these conversations, it's not spread out all over the internet. It's in one place, and these conversations are going to eventually form the consensus that we can point to if a trial ever came up and said, these are the doctors that talk about carbohydrate restriction, and this is the consensus amongst them. And we can point them to all the papers and the research and the science behind what they're saying, and here's the consensus. So this is also a bit like herding cats too. So my biggest job right now is to get those conversations going, and to get those doctors to get into another platform, yet another platform, but at least it's all in one place, and it's fully documented, it's searchable, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to point to something real and say, this is our consensus, this is our standard of care for carbohydrate restriction. Okay. So I know when I showed you back the medical practitioners, the list of doctors or dietitians as well, nutritionists, anybody can enter their information in there. And we say that you need to be open to the conversation at least of carbohydrate restriction if you put your name in there, but I can't guarantee that, right? So what we have is now, if people then join our professional community, and we've joined up with the Noakes Foundation to provide an online course. And if they then get certified or get a certificate from the Noakes Foundation or the Nutrition Network, it's a spin-off from the Noakes Foundation, they get us a certificate from there that shows that they've done the training, right? And they're part of our professional community. They're participating in these conversations and helping to grow this eventual standard of care, contribute to that effort. Then we will put a certified badge next to their name, and that way I can certify that this person is genuine, right? Until that happens, I can't certify that. They're welcome to put their information in there. I've had one person complain about a doctor that they looked up on there, and his LDL was a little bit high, and the guy wanted to put him on statins, and he walked out of the office and wrote to me in fury. And I took the guy off immediately, you know, and I was traveling in Australia, and I still haven't had a chance to actually contact that doctor, but at some point I'm going to have a conversation with him and say, what were you thinking? Why? Yeah, either come and do the course, and then we'll put you back on there, otherwise you're not welcome in our community, really. So, as I said, all of that stuff's on our website. You can look at it at your leisure. So why am we doing this? And my personal testimonial about I wasn't sick, well, at least I hadn't been tested. I was probably pre-diabetic, but I hadn't been tested, so I can't say that I was. But I had profound improvements, and decided I didn't know what a ketone was until I was 50 years old. So how's that possible? So what can I do to try and help other people and learn about that and not get to 50 and not know what a ketone is? But my family is all in Australia now, okay, and that's kind of confusing because everybody thinks I'm from Australia and I'm not. I'm from South Africa. We have a lot of rivalry with Australia, especially on the sports field. So it's kind of it's not cool to call a South African an Australian. But now I tell them I'm going to visit my family in Australia, and then they really get confused. But my sister's been there for a long time. My folks moved there a couple of years ago, and last year in April, we went out there and it was the first time our whole family had been together for literally 25 years. And when I was growing up, I can't eat eggs. And I thought I was allergic to them because it made me really, really sick. But it turns out that I'm just, the smell and the flavor turns my stomach. And if anything's cooked with eggs and whatever, and you can make things with raw eggs, it's fine. As long as I can't taste the eggs and smell it, I'm fine. But it was a massive issue in our house from the time that I can remember that when I was little until I was about 15 or 16 when I was big enough to say, I'm not eating another egg, and that was it, right? We got to Australia, and it was the afternoon, and we chatted a little bit, and we all went to bed, and we got up in the morning, and my mom got up, and she said, "So, can I make you some eggs for breakfast?" And I was really offended that she didn't remember this, right? And Pam was actually kind of embarrassed. I just reacted, and I yelled at her, "Don't you remember this?" And it was wild for about half an hour, okay? The next morning, we got up, and she said, "So, can I cook you some eggs for breakfast?" And that was when I realized that we were in trouble, okay? And through that whole stay, and now we've just came back last week from there again, and it's the same thing. She doesn't remember anything from... We have a conversation, and the next day it's like that conversation never happened, okay? And I know that if she had to stop eating all this crap, that, especially now that it's kind of the early onset of this, that I feel like we can almost guarantee that we'd eradicate it completely, but I can't say that for sure. But I know for sure that it would definitely improve greatly. And I've helped so many people, or I've been able to get through or provide speakers that can get through to so many people here, people that want to listen. But when it's your own family, and we were talking about it yesterday when we were setting up, and we were joking and saying, the first rule of keto is don't talk about keto. Because we've all had these amazing transformations in our lives, right? And all you want to do is tell everybody about it because you can't understand why they don't get it or they don't do it. But with my family, it's different, right? I've got to a point where if people don't want to listen, there's millions of people that do want to listen, so come back when you get it, right? And it doesn't offend me, but when it's my family, it's different. And I tried, we were there for 10 days this time, like every day we're having this conversation, but it's like Groundhog Day, right? So like every day we're having the conversation again. And a couple of days before we left, we had this conversation, and my mom was like serious, okay, like, but I can't just give up all this sugar, like, I can't stop all of this stuff in one go. And so we have this 2-hour conversation about, okay, well, let's do it in stages. Give up one thing at a time, and we talked about the whole thing. You don't have to do the whole thing in one shot. It's not like flick a switch, all right? And by the end of the conversation, we thought, okay, I actually got through to her. I really thought I'd got through to her. The last night, we went to my brother's place, and my sister-in-law is famous for her puddings and desserts and stuff that she makes. And so she brings this stuff out, and my mom's sitting there guzzling this stuff up and saying, "You don't know what you're missing, Doug." And my sister's saying, "Oh, Mom, you don't know what you're starting now," because it's the same, don't speak about keto thing. Like every day I'm saying, "Mom, you got to stop eating this shit." But I think it was because it was the last day. I was getting on a plane the next day, and it made me realize that I didn't have any more days to have these conversations with her anymore. And I just said, no, I'm not missing anything. I don't want to get diabetes. And I even said, I don't want to get dementia. I literally wanted to stand up there and start screaming at her. I don't want to be like you. I want you to remember who I am next time I come back here. I don't want to be on the other side of the world and phone you and you don't know who you're talking to. That's what was going on in my head. But it's a family farewell last night. I couldn't do that. But I was holding onto the table like this. I was so, and it was angry is not the right word. I was just so frustrated and so sad. And I just went inside. And my brother came in and said, "Oh, what's wrong?" And I said, "Murray, seriously, Mom's got to stop eating this shit. And I can't get through to her. You've got to help me with this." What's even worse, I found out when we were going home, Pam told me that my sister-in-law, who made these famous cakes and puddings, had a conversation with her. She's a skinny thing that runs and all of that. She's always been skinny. She just got diagnosed with pre-diabetes. Okay? And you know what her doctor told her? Now you're going to have to stop eating cheese. That was the advice from the doctor when he found out that she was pre-diabetic. It's like, I'm speechless. What do I do? Okay? So I come home and I put things like this on so that I can try and reach people that are at least open to listening. Okay? And a lot of you are medical practitioners. I'm really pleased about that because what you can learn here, you can disseminate to your colleagues and your patients, and that's bit by bit. I mean, 2 years ago, keto was not that well known. Now it's the most searched word or phrase or whatever in Google. So people are becoming aware of it now, and everybody's trying to monetize it and everything. We try and stick with the science and the education and make sure that people get the right information. And hopefully this is just one more step towards a better world one day. So I stole this from one of the Dr. Jacob Wilson, who speaks at quite a few of our events, and he always ends with this, and so I stole it from him. But the reason we do this is, if not us, then who's going to do it? And if not now, then when? Okay? We have to do it right now. That's gone blank. Does that mean I've run out of time? 10 minutes. 8 minutes. Okay. So just quickly, hopefully I can read this. Outside in the expo, the Nutrition Coalition is, I worked a lot with Nina Teicholz to come up with their 10, I forget what do they call them? 10 commandments, basically anyway, it's all the things that they want with regards to the dietary guidelines. She works tirelessly to try and get the guidelines changed. And I often say that I feel like as hard as she works, we don't know how long that's going to take before that changes. And we can't wait for the guidelines to change before we change what happens in medicine. We just can't. There's already millions of people who have died that shouldn't have died. And we need to stop that rot. Nina wrote a thing that got published in the Washington Post. Is it the Washington Post? So you guys can go and look it up when you get a chance. It's called "Diets Are Not One Size Fits All." Also, why do we treat the dietary guidelines like that? Okay, but someone, I forget now. She sent me, one of the paragraphs in that article says, nutrition-related diseases kill about 4,300 people daily, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The equivalent of nearly 11 jumbo jets crashing and killing every person on board every day. Where's the emergency expert panels, the headlines, the congressional outrage devoted to this massive, unparalleled public health crisis? The guidelines, whether through design or implementation, are clearly a failed policy. It's time to ground the planes and acknowledge this disaster. Independent experts with no vested interest in the status quo are urgently needed to rethink the problem. Okay? And Michael Wood is out there with the Nutrition Coalition thing, and you can have discussions about the advocacy efforts there in Washington to try and get these guidelines changed. But in the meantime, this is what we can do. We can sit here, we can learn about this, we can teach our friends about it, we can teach our colleagues about it, and we can take it to our patients. And as we do this and we participate in this community, we're going to be more and more protected by a community of people that all actually have a consensus on what this needs to be. We've got guidelines now that you can refer to. Let's go out and get this done.